going to look at the shoulder joint and actually how it affects that first exercise as well, but also how it affects what we do when we get to the Tai Chi part of this class. Okay, so your shoulder joint. Okay, so this is a right shoulder joint. Okay, so this is my right. I know I'm not in mirror now, so you can see the collarbone here, and you can feel your own collarbone. So what happens is the collarbone. I mean, just get onto your own. What was the? So I'm in mirror, so that's it's your going to be your right one as well, isn't it? So is it? No, it's going to be your left one. Sorry, I'm facing you. So your left collarbone. Okay. So obviously it starts here in the middle where your breastbone is, okay, so chunky bone, the sternum, and you run your finger underneath. So basically what I'm doing is I'm running my finger underneath the collarbone, and then it hits a tendon. So these are the ligaments. These pink things are the ligaments they've done in plastic. It's very immobile. It's got no mobility really, a little bit, but not much. And then it hits this bumpy bone right on the top. Now, this is called your acromion. And this bone is part of, if I just turn it round, this bone is part of what's called the spine of the scapula. It runs down and it goes up to the acromion. So it runs down and then up to the acromion. So I can sort of feel my scapular spine, but it's not very easy. Really, you need somebody else to help you here and prod around. However, what I can feel is my acromion. So if I run my finger along the collarbone here, and then it kind of reaches a hole, yeah? Okay, so that hole, if you can see, is in there. That's where the end of the clavicle is, the collarbone. The clavicle is there, and there's a kind of a hole. Yeah, acupuncture point here, major acupuncture point there. And then suddenly the next bone that appears is the acromion. So I run along and I hit the hole, and then suddenly I'm on this kind of bony structure here, which is round about here. So I go right into that hole, I carry on as far as I possibly can, and you'll find that your clavicle goes out first and it goes back in. Look, it goes out first, then it goes back in again, out and then back in into this hollow. And if you keep trying to go, you'll find there's a really sort of bony protuberance there. So this is part of your shoulder blade. Which is weird, isn't it? Because the shoulder blade you think of as being on your back, but actually the whole thing comes right across the top. So if you're looking at, that's me with my back to you. So there's the scapular spine, and then it runs right up forwards of the body. In fact, even if I go side on, here's the head of the humerus. You can see this bone, possibly you can see this bone if I get out the light, is almost level with the front of the head of the humerus. So this bony protrusion comes right across the front here. So underneath that, if you find that bony protrusion at the front, and actually you drop down about an inch from here to here, I don't know if you can see, there's the end of the bony protrusion at the front. And then if you drop down about an inch, there is actually another little bony protrusion. This is called your coracoid process, also part of the scapula, also part of the shoulder blade, but it's actually come to the front of you. So when we run under the collarbone here, and you carry on as far as you can, there's the hole. I'm now bashing into the acromial process here. Process is something to which muscles attach. Yeah, that's all it means. So there's the acromial process, and there's the little roundy bit at the end of it. So my acromial, this is how big it is, right over the top from the back here. That's the scapula, the back part of the scapula. And then you can call this, if you like, the front part of the scapula. It's the acromial process, really. And then I drop down about an inch underneath that, and there's another little bony place, harder to feel, because that place is just covered with lots of muscles and tendons and ligaments. And so it's quite difficult to feel that. Now then, when you do, so I'll get back to the arm in a second. The arm is the bit I'm particularly interested in here, but you need the anatomy of what happens. So here's me with my back to you. Yeah, there's me with my back to you, right? Okay, so here's the acromial process at the very front. Okay, if I just tilt it, that's at the front, but it's over here. You can see that the arm, the bone of the arm, is actually way below the level of that shoulder blade, because this is part of the shoulder blade, the acromial process. Yeah, the acromion. So this is, it has very little mobility, unfortunately, in this model. So here, but when you go and you pull your arm backwards, what happens is, and you can feel it yourself. So put your finger on the collarbone here, and this hand is down here. Now just leave your finger anywhere on your collarbone here you like. In fact, if you like, put 2 fingers on. It doesn't really matter. And now you pull backwards like we did. Now you can feel that the acromial process and the collarbone have all moved. The whole thing has moved. So if you want, go to the acromial process, the bony prominent bit there. When you pull back, the whole thing has pulled backwards. So therefore, all of this here has opened out massively. Yeah, and of course we're doing it both sides. So suddenly this is happening on the rib cage. And I know it's obvious, but I wanted you to see the bone structure of how that actually happens. Now then, as I said, the actual arm, the head, this is called the head of the humerus, big bony lump, and it sits in a socket just in here. So all this structure, the clavicle, is above the arm. It's above the height of the arm. There's distance between it. So when you lift your arm sideways, for example, or you just go up in the air like this, actually, you're rotating this. This shouldn't really move very much. This whole structure here, if you go sideways like that and just do that, this should stay pretty stable. As soon as you go beyond this, it starts to move because certain extra muscles are involved. But up to about 90 degrees, maybe not quite, you could actually rotate, and I can't unfortunately do it, but let's say that this here, my glasses case, what actually happens is the structure here is going to stay stable, and then all that happens is this rotates within, and this isn't moving at the top here. The acromial process isn't moving yet. As soon as you do this, then the whole vertebra here, the whole scapula starts to do that. It starts to tilt for the extra little bit. So when you go here and you just do this, keep that upper structure here just stable. And if you want to feel it yourself, put a hand on your acromion here, find the little bony bit, if you like, trace along here until you bump into some, bony piece there. Put your fingers on it there and just lift sideways. And you shouldn't feel it move much. In fact, oddly enough, you'll feel it actually sink very slightly if you're doing it correctly. So what you're feeling is when you feel it sink, is you're not actually feeling it sinking. It's stable. What actually happens is that the biceps tendons on the top here, they actually contract. And so they fatten up, if you like, and become tenser. So it feels like, because they do this, it feels like the acromion is actually sinking down, but actually it's not really happening. What's happening is the top part of the structure is tightening, and you're feeling that. And it's slightly deceptive. You try the other arm. So here, and you'll find a hole appears here, right on the end of the arm. You see, have I got a crease on my sleeve? Not really, sort of, a little sort of crease. It's a little bit higher than that. But so when you do that, you should feel, if you prod around, you should feel a hole appearing in your arm, roughly here. Now, up to about here, this hasn't really moved. So if you just put your hand on your upper shoulder now, but you're now going to lift your hand right up into the air. And as you do it, you'll now feel everything starts to rotate a little bit, but it should only be a little bit. It shouldn't be too much. So what most people do when they lift the arms is they do this. They go to about here, and some people get this wrong even. And then they go like this, and they start lifting. See, my whole shoulder. I'm now using the trapezius muscle into the back of my head, my neck. My neck has become involved. Shouldn't be involved at all. You should put your fingers on your neck here. Oh, back to here. Find the muscles on the side of the neck. When you lift up, they shouldn't be involved at all. You shouldn't feel them tensing. And when you go up here, you shouldn't feel them tensing. In fact, then you could actually go softer. Because it should because the muscle hanging now like a hammock. But of course, people don't do that. They tense up, and lifting the arm becomes a. If you're doing it regularly, if you're a tennis player and you don't lift your arm correctly, you probably, well, you build the habit, of course, of doing it wrongly, but it's good for headaches. You know, any of this stuff, you know, where you're doing sort of playing tennis or whatever, and you're tensing up right into your head, not good. Not good for migraines, that kind of thing. So, loads of exercises when we do lifting of the arms are going to involve only certain bits of you. Don't involve the unnecessary bits. So when we do Tai Chi, we're going to lift the arms at the beginning here, and then you settle your arms. But this shouldn't be involved. Once again, when you lift the arm, and this is my back, so we're looking like this, I've got my back to you. When I lift the arm forwards, it should just rotate in that socket. It shouldn't involve up here. It shouldn't involve the acromion process, the acromion. So you can put a hand here on your front here and just lift your arm up. Shouldn't have lifted. You'll feel stuff going on under your fingers, but of course that's the muscles, that's your biceps tendons doing all the work. And you'll find there's a hole in here. Even when you lift it up ahead of you, there'll be a hole. And you try the other side, you rest on there, on the bony bit, and just lift up ahead of you. It should sink. And then you're lifting your arms correctly. You're stopping involving all these unnecessary bits. And of course, you just notice when you reach something out of a shelf, on a high shelf next time. Do you go like this to reach something out of a high shelf? You know, do you go like that? Or do you lift up and then you perhaps go on to tiptoe to reach? And then maybe by all means extend the arm, but you can still sink here. It will not make you get higher. Yeah.